All right. So greetings, scholars. So this presentation is for basically my Morehouse Online students. I have one group that meets on Mondays and another one that's going to meet later today at 7 p.m., which is Wednesday. And so I just wanted to kind of do this presentation to give you an update on the grading, the grade book, right? So you're going to see a bunch of extra columns that you can ignore. Basically, if you see a grade, that's what I submitted, essentially. And there are about 4 or 5 different categories that you basically need to focus on. It's basically wherever you see a grade, right? So for instance, I know I did the current average for each student, right? So the current average, and basically the way I calculated the averages. So I took, the average for exam 1, part 1 and part 2 together. So that was, I weighted that to about 60% of your overall grade. So your average from exam 1 with part 1 and part 2 together was 60% of this first grade. And then the my math lab. So with my math lab, I basically took the average of your homework, your quizzes, your review tests, anything that was homework or quiz related that was for a grade, I pretty much put into that one average. I just took the average of those assignments. And then I weighted that. I think by the final, that's going to have a weight of about 10%, but because we're missing like the midterm and the final and stuff like that, for this iteration, that was weighted to like 20%. And then also the discussion boards, the attendance discussion boards, I was kind of lax with the grading there. So basically, if you submitted something that was coherent and accurate, I essentially gave you credit for it. I weighted that to like 20% of this grade. So again, 60% of this grade came from your exam 1 average. 20% came from the my math lab assignment. So that's like homework, quizzes, things of that nature. And then your attendance checkpoint counted for 20%, right? So I know there was at least like one student that he pretty much he dominated everything. Like exam 1, part 1. There's a couple of students. It's a few students that are actually doing this. But they did well on the exam, part 1, part 2. They did well on everything, the homework even, everything, except they were missing the discussion. So they're going to see that their grade is a little bit lower because they're missing that. If you're able to access it, just go ahead and submit it. And, so if you're missing the discussion or if you're missing any assignments, if you see anything missing, go ahead and try to submit it anyway, right? And we'll be updated. My goal is to update the grade on a weekly basis, mainly on probably like Tuesday or Wednesday. Between Tuesday and Thursday of each week, I do intend to update the grade book with whatever assignments have officially been due. Obviously life happens and, maybe I might get behind, maybe not. I don't want you to get too locked in on it, but I did want to take my time to kind of make this available. Also, word to the wise. So I had in either case, in either class, I had a couple of students, about 2 or 3 in each class, where they submitted their partial work to recover missed points on the part 1 of the exam, right? So I took some time, basically whatever they loaded, I pulled it. And so to recover points for them, when I went back to review, I only reviewed students that submitted partial work for part 1, right? So then for those students that submitted their partial work, I went back and looked at their part 1 of their exam. Every time they got a question wrong, I went and looked and see what they submitted. And if I saw, sufficient work, like handwritten work that was submitted, then I gave them most credit for those questions. So they recovered a lot of points. I know at least one student went from his part 1 went from maybe a 60 something to like a high 80, right? So, when you're taking, long story short, when you're taking that part 1 of the exam, it's a good idea to get a copy, like either write it down or screenshot or something like that of each question. Just get a copy of each question, show all supporting work, and put your final answer in a box. The more neat and organized and presentable you can make that, show your work for part 1 of the exams, the easier it is for me to recover points for you. All right. Some of the students, I know there was like at least one student where he missed something on part 1. I went looking for his work. It wasn't all the way coherent. So I just gave him a few points just for taking the time out. Obviously, I don't want you guys just submitting anything. I want you to be like coherent and clean and organized and neat as much as possible. but I did just give him some credit for the effort. I'm not saying that I'll do that going forward, just because he did it on his first go. I gave him a few points there. Not full credit, not as much as if he had shown the proper work or anything like that. So I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty as far as what's expected, right? To summarize, I think a good summary of what's expected on a weekly basis. I'm under the impression that it's about 5 different things every week we're looking for. So you have any kind of homework for that week. You have the homework also includes like their review homeworks for the exams. So unless it says not graded, you're responsible for it. So you have homework. I know there are quizzes each week. Every time we have an exam, you have the part 1 of the exams, you have the discussions for the exams, and you have the part 2. So part 2, the discussions, part 1, any kind of homework, and any quizzes. Those are the 5 things, generally speaking, we're looking for on a weekly basis. Now, when it comes to the midterm and the final, there are no discussions on the week of the midterm and the final, right? So, so the discussions corresponds to exams 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Okay, so the grade book has been updated as of exam 1. If you see anything missing, go ahead and try to submit it anyway, right? Because I think that all assignments, we still get unlimited attempts. There's only a 5% late penalty. Another thing is, if you made less than 95% on an assignment, go ahead and submit it anyway, right? If there's only a 5% late penalty. Now, I think with like part 1 of the exams, because you might still be able to access that, because I know you get 1 attempt at it, and I know you have the right, like if it's late, right? So if the only exception is that part 1, right? If you haven't done part 1, do the best you can. Like if you feel like you're ready, go ahead and submit it. Anything other than part 1, if you've earned less than a 95, I personally would just try to improve those scores, right? And so again, my personal goal as your instructor or your guide or professor or whatever is to update your grades on a weekly basis between Tuesdays and Thursdays. I took this past Tuesday, it took me like a day or 2 to kind of get down to all the nitty gritty and all the nuances of what's expected. And so now today's what, Wednesday? So I think I got down to enough of it. Again, on a weekly basis, generally speaking, we're looking for 5 different things. I'm going to go in reverse order. So there's part 1, which is due Sunday nights, discussions, which are generally due on Saturday nights. Part 1 of the exams, which are due Friday nights. Hopefully I said part 2 was due Sunday nights. Discussions are due Saturday nights. Part 1 are due Friday nights. And then you have the corresponding due dates for any like homework and quizzes for those exams, okay? So hopefully that condenses it and kind of simplifies what's expected. And then, the closer we get to week 5, I know we're going to be giving group assignments that we're going to be responsible for, okay? So hopefully, I was able to like kind of clarify basically what we were looking for. And if you missed, if you just bombed part 1, just take a deep breath. You have so many opportunities to recover points. Keep in mind that the midterm, if it's higher than your part 1, so if you got a 0 and you submit the midterm, then it's going to be higher than your part 1, right? If your midterm is higher than either exam 1 or exam 2, it's going to replace it, right? If your final exam is higher than your midterm, then your final exam can replace the midterm. And then in turn, if that score is higher than your part 1 or your test 1 or test 2, then those can be replaced, right? Now, test 3 and test 4, I think those are like one-shot deals, but at least you can recover points on test 1, test 2, and the midterm. That's huge. Additionally, there's partial credit. There's partial credit available on those part 1. So if you can like just gift the gab, show your work, be neat and organized. Because I try to take my time, and if you all take your time to create the handwritten work and load it for me, then I try to take my time to go through it and recover as much partial credit for those students as I can. And then also there are extra credit opportunities. So I would read through the syllabus. If you kind of stick to those extra credit opportunities that are outlined in the syllabus, I'll honor them, right? So again, I don't want you guys to like, stress out or anything. I just want you to take a deep breath, know that it's possible, know that this is feasible, it's doable. You wouldn't be here if you couldn't do it. You can definitely do it. Take a deep breath, collaborate, with your classmates, connect with the tutors, and, make use of my office hours and ask me questions. Just take your time, and you can definitely do this. Okay, guys? All right. So with that, the first round of grades have been submitted, and, I'll kind of be doing follow-ups with like necessary students or whatever as needed. I was trying to make this blank. I guess, yeah, it's kind of freezing a little bit. But okay. So on that note, we're actually going to end the session here. And from one beautiful mind to another, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Take care. Peace.